Hi everybody, welcome to Beyond the Bench, where we discuss taking hardware through production and the stories along the way. My name is Bill Brock, CEO of Peridio, the ecosystem for building and maintaining advanced embedded products. Hey everybody, welcome to the show, Beyond the Bench, Hardware Stories That Matter. I have a fantastic guest for you all here today, Mattia Lucchini, Head of Wearable Sensors Development at Datwyler. And Mattia is a veteran of the show. We've had numerous conversations over the last year, and we had a really nice stroll through CES together. January this year, great to see you in Vegas. Welcome back to the show. It's great to see you again.
Hi, Bill. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here again and chatting with you.
Absolutely. Well, for those of the audience that didn't hear the first episode, first, it's their fault, but second, tell us a little bit more about yourself and Datwyler and your focus in that organization.
Sure. So, I work at Datwyler since roughly 8 years now. Datwyler is a manufacturing company for rubber goods. So, we do rubber components. How does it happen that we are actually active in the wearable space is that related to the fact that some 10 years ago now, roughly, a research institute was looking into developing a brain signal collecting device that can be used at home. Using it at home means that the people needs to use it in an easy way. No preparation, no gel, no kind of mess around, just plug and play. And that translates into requirements for the single components. And back then, we realized that we could have tapped into this opportunity using our material capabilities. And so the story began. Fast forward to today, I am now supporting the technology development of what we call soft pulse electrodes that are basically rubber-based electrodes for the collection of biopotential. In very short, biopotential is nothing else than the electrical signal that our body generates spontaneously. Everyone knows what ECG is, so the heart activity, but the brain does it as well, muscle does it as well, and the eyes as well. So a lot of potential by measuring these kind of signals to learn what is happening in our body, both for health reasons, but if you think to use this signal also kind of as an additional steering opportunity, also for machine-human interface.
That is a great explanation. How did you're a PhD, right? What's your degree in?
Right, I'm a PhD in chemistry, so nothing to do with what I'm doing about, no. But I was studying a lot of a bit fancier kind of physical chemistry, so theory of magnetism and high energy radiations and stuff like that. Turning into polymer, driven by the kind of how can I push myself out of my comfort zone? Can I learn something that I don't know anything about? Again, with a safety net, because I'm a chemist, so I can easily understand polymer even if I did not have a formal background. And now pushing it again a step further into the space of neuroscience and kind of wearable to the edge of product development today, because what I'm doing today is really talk with partner and customer and trying to translate their needs and wishes into product features and value. That's actually what I'm doing today.
And when we were at CES, we had the pleasure of walking the floor, as I said earlier, but the cool part was that you were able to show a couple of your customers or integrations that were actually at the event. So I don't know if you can share the names, but what are some of the use cases where people are pulling in your sensors and wearable products?
Right. I mean, that was great for me, honestly. I mean, we had a long discussion, should we exhibit or should we not exhibit at CES internally? And ultimately, for me, the best way to be at CES is through your customer as a component supplier. Why should I have a booth in which I have to explain, no, I'm not doing that. No, I'm not doing that. I'm just doing this small piece. Why, when you actually have people on the floor displaying what they can do also with our components. So we had some players in the earbuds domain, being able to collect both EEG, so brain signal, but also muscle signal from the ear. And that is mainly done both for cognitive evaluation, so understanding the state of a person, Is the person calm? Is the person particularly stressed or anything in between? Or for, again, steering a machine. So we can use this micro gesture, facial micro gesture, to use them as a kind of a new mouse, right? So you have the way to control your computer, and that's particularly relevant for people with
disabilities,
physical problem. Exactly. Yeah. That's the case for this specific company. That it's called, by the way, Naki Logics.
Cool. That is very cool. I met at CES the prior year a group who created something called a mouth pad, which is hard to say, but it was like a denture essentially, or like yeah. And very, very cool product.
Yes, it is actually a great product. Yeah.
So go ahead. Sorry.
No. But and I was just thinking. I think that all in all we had more than 10 of our partners or customer on the floor, and again for me was truly great, because that means that slowly but steadily we are getting to the point that people are exposed to this technology, and by having a clear, honest message, you get people starting to get used to that, starting to understand the value. It's a tough thing because technology is one thing, but where is really the value for the user? What about, again, macro topic, privacy? These are data coming from your body. You want to use them, but you also don't want anyone to have access to them, right? So,
right.
A lot of topics, but it's moving.
What are the most useful signals that you're helping your customers capture? So you mentioned the mouse, the facial control of the computer, or I think you showed me also there were some sleep masks. How are your customers actually using this? How is this benefiting them?
I would create two categories. One is I want to understand what's going on inside the body, and the other one is I use my body as a way to control something outside of it.
Okay.
So in the first category, I have all the signal like the ECG that tells you about your cardiovascular health, ultimately, or EEG, so brain signal that can tells you about a specific cognitive state in which you are, or a specific state, let's generalize. And that's helpful. For example, you were talking about the mask. Sleep health or sleep monitoring is a huge field for different reasons.
Right.
But the more you know, the more you can. It doesn't mean that you necessarily do, but it's up to the user. The more you can actually optimize that. And I am happy and part of this new trend of being more aware of what all of these kind of daily activity impact on how these impact your status. And sleep, it's a space in which there are many companies working. Earbuds for sleep, for example, is a huge topic. I'm talking at least with 5-6 different companies looking in this domain. Very challenging.
Really? So they're feeling like it's starting to go mainstream, and they really wanted to differentiate.
Yeah, it's true, and it's also to a certain extent an easy to understand application, because we go back to the point that many signals are interesting, but people have lack of imagination and understanding what can you do with that. But everyone sleeps, right? And everyone has a bad night of sleep. So if you can actually measure it properly and actually closer to what is considered the gold standard, that it's basically polysomnography done in the hospital, if I can do it at home, well, there's little to be discussed about what is it good for. You understand that. And sorry, closing with the second category, it's instead, okay, I use my body to steer something, and here we go in the domain of, can I collect, for example, eye movement to scroll through a menu without using my hands? Or can I use my muscle to control a virtual environment? And here, I think the easiest to understand example is the one from Meta. They released openly in, I think, October last year, the Orion AR glasses.
And so they're using these types of electrodes and the AR glasses.
Not the glasses, but in one of the accessory.
Oh,
actually, they tapped into a fairly new territory that is full AR. So I don't have a screen. Well, I have a screen, but it's a pass-through screen, right? So, and in that case, I suddenly have the problem of how can I control this environment? Because I don't want to have controllers in my hand. I mean, I did, I don't know, investment of billions of dollars to get there, and I don't want to go around with joysticks, right? The main solution today is cameras. I detect where my hands are, I recognize the gesture, and I
Sure, the Apple, the ABP stuff. Yeah.
Exactly. But there are intrinsic limitations that are both in terms of field of view. If I do something behind my back, the camera will not see it, sure.
Mm-hmm.
And power consumption and latency.
And you just kind of look like a weirdo if you're like trying to, play with the world, clicking and snapping, and people are like, yeah, what's going on with this guy?
Yeah, the acceptance is definitely something that we will see more and more tapping up. But Meta has a completely different way. So they have this bracelet that detects muscles.
Okay.
And it has an insane resolution. What they claim is that they are approaching the level that by writing in air, it will recognize what you're actually writing, your handwriting, and translating it in typing.
So this is a control, not sensing application.
Exactly. Yeah. So this is the second category. Exactly.
Yeah. Very interesting. What supporting technology is required? So you're a sensor company. Your customer comes up. They want to do a new sleep mask. They want to do earbuds that manage sleep. You clearly know a lot about the space. How do you begin to walk them through what it means to take one of these products from sensing to actually providing some sort of real-time value to their customers?
Yeah, that's a good point, because everything starts with a great idea, but then the moment that you have to pile up the requirements, you get scared, right? So I think that, okay, for sure what we do, so basically the electrode, that is indeed the interface between the hardware and the body, is fundamental. But let's give it as a done deal. What remains, I think that a key component is surely the acquisition board, the acquisition device that you have, specifically the analog front end, the digital, the analog to digital converter, and obviously then the microcontroller. So the combination of these elements is fundamental, because we often talk with customers, and we share, for example, the specs of our electrodes, and trust me, you will find 20% say, it cannot work. This spec cannot work. I say, guys, trust me, I have many customers and many products in the market. So, and I do that myself, right? I would not bring it there if it was not working. And this is an example just to say that each component has to fit within the bigger picture. So we have to design the wearable device taking into account what's the next step and what's the previous one. Because you can always work with a higher or lower component, but if everything is created in a nice harmonic way, then you will get a good result. This applies specifically to the selection of the proper analog front end, to the proper ADC, and so on. Huge discussion that is coming more and more is about, for example, power consumption.
Yeah.
How can we make this device last longer with higher, with our capabilities, or edge computing again? These are two things that are very important to be considered when we plan the product, because they have an amazing influence on the architecture of the device. Because ultimately we want the product, right? So it has to be small, light, and long-lasting, and so on and so forth.
Do you do any work with the Open BCI group? Are you aware of these guys?
We know them. We meet regularly. We never had really the chance to do something big together. We did something small. We started at the early stage of the Galea project that you might know. So this big headset that combines some, let's say, multi-sensor platform. But unfortunately, we didn't manage to find the right space to move together. But they're doing great. Yes. And again, the advocacy that they do for the field is unpayable. I mean, really, they're doing great job for the whole community.
I saw something they posted on LinkedIn yesterday or this morning about headphones very similar to what you were saying, headphones that were detecting eye movement, and it was very interesting control interface for maybe the screens or really impressive. You mentioned,
and funny enough, sorry,
what? No,
about headphones and giving a shout out to a company we are working or talking a lot together. These headphones, for example, they conduct brainwaves. So,
are those the neural?
Yes, correct. So
very
these
cool.
one you see are indeed constantly measuring my brain, and that's what I said about the first category, right? So learning what's going on within the body. So while working, I can continuously monitor what's going on, and sometimes I get on my phone, hey, according to the metrics, you are tired, so have a break. And again, that's a nice, more science-based reminder that we are not superhuman. And even if we would like to work 12 hours, our brain gets tired.
Well, I know Ramses fairly well. We've met a few times, and when I saw him last in Boston, they were readying this release, and so he was really excited. So, what's the feedback? Are you passionate user? How do you feel about it?
I mean, first of all, really they managed to combine their technology with a great product in general. I love them. I mean, to the point that I really have them always with me. The additional feature is nice, and I use them regularly. I think it still needs a tip in maturity level, and specifically in integration with the workflow. I'm someone that values a lot what I'm getting from an app, and I'm ready to give up a bit on hyper privacy, so to say. What do I mean with that? I would love to have this app connected to my calendar to tell me, to contextualize better what's happening in a certain moment. Was that meeting stressing me so much, or was the next one? Because that could help me also in kind of improving myself, right? So if I regularly see that by talking with person X, I'm seriously getting stressed, then I have to...
Every time I come on that dang podcast with Bill, I'm having a bad day.
Excitement over the... No, but that's something that I truly see the thing, because even though we try to be as honest as we pretend to be with ourselves, it's a kind of, I don't know, feeling-based, right, feedback. But if I would have a bit of more objective proof, I hope I would be honest enough to learn from that.
And so that what you're looking for from these apps is mostly stress and fatigue. Is that what you're getting most of the feedback on?
Yeah, right. I mean, it's cognitive load. So basically, ultimately, it tells you how your brain is behaving within a certain time. And what Wearable developed is actually an algorithm that is able to be fed with all the brain waves that are generated at a certain time, and then to create the metrics out of it. And then at a certain point, if you go below a certain threshold, that's kind of the trigger to say, that's a bit too much, take a break, and go back to the status that you can. Yeah.
Do you listen to it? Do you pay attention? Do you follow the signal? Like if it tells you to take a break,
75% of the time. That's good.
Yeah, that's good. That's good.
Yeah, not big. Again, I push myself, right? As I am in the wearable domain, I really push myself also sometimes to stick to what they say, but even just to try, right? Because it's difficult to admit that my phone knows better than me.
Yeah.
What do you know? Come on, I have 10 minutes. I have to make it finish. I know I need a break. I know it as well, but I have to bring it home because otherwise I will not be home in time, right? So that's also true for the sleep that we were talking about before. Once that you know objectively that is not bad, because for example your deep sleep was below what is normally considered good, that is 35% of the total sleep. Fair. Then you know it. What do you do with it? Do you try to understand what you ate last night, or what did you do, or just okay and move on? That's up to the user ultimately.
I had a a bad user experience. Not, I am a bad user. So I mentioned before the call, we recently had a baby. He's 10 weeks old now. Love him. Super excited. But thank you. But I was a religious user of the Aura Ring and loved the ring, loved the passive activity there. Super helpful. And it's just something I don't have to think about. Like open it up, look at it every morning, really enjoyed it. I also liked it in comparison to the Whoop because I felt like it was a little less aggressive to me. Like it was like, it just like, you could tell I was trying. It was more, Whoop was always like, you're about to die. You need it was too aggressive on the messaging for me. I got a little defensive. But when we had our child, one, it was hard for me to keep up with anything. So like charging the thing became problematic, but then it was just giving me constant bad information. And I'm like, I have a newborn. I'm taking a break. I'm taking a 3-month break from this thing. I don't need to know that I'm sleeping bad. I don't need to be told. I already know. This is just where we are right now.
But that's a big drawback of wearables in general. Kind of technology fatigue.
Yeah.
So you get more stressed by knowing that rather than simply being completely unaware of what's going on and try to live your life at best. That's a big topic. But I also think that the product developer, and I really mean in the most holistic way I can say, could work on that. Because it's ultimately how you position that, right? I mean, if you push too much on the one thing or another, you lack the understanding on how the people behave. I mean, we cannot always sleep 8 hours. That's a fact. I would love, but I cannot. Simply, I cannot. So, and I think that here we have quite big opportunities once that we will manage to have a bit more comprehensive understanding and not just single points in disconnected app. Because, I mean, Apple provide platforms, obviously, and Whoop, Aura, or Garmin, whatever, they can tap into that. But this new wave of wearable devices and sensors, if we think about the brain and so on, they are not yet at that level, so they cannot fit in this big platform. My hope and my belief is that once that they will, then we will get way more out of this new wave of wearable devices.
So what does that ecosystem look like to you? Like in an ideal world, what is the highest impact use of these sensors and kind of the full, like maybe like a body measurement stack?
I mean, here, I don't have a real answer, but maybe we can try to play visionary now. So let's think about a future in which you really have some kind of personal assistant that it's easy to imagine today with kind of some kind of AI agent, right? That knows a bit about everything about you, starting from your schedule.
It's like the mirror that you talk to in the morning. You know, like get your camera up and it's like, hey, here's all your stats. I think that's a Black Mirror thing, right?
But you saw it also at CES. I mean, we developed that now.
yeah, Black Mirror and also CES. You know, same.
Well, decide yourself which one is the best. But that, I think, again, let's now forget about all the implication, ethics, and privacy and blah blah blah. But let's assume that everything is done correctly. Once that we get there, having both a kind of an offline, or so to say, punctual data from your agenda or your whatever information you have in your mobile, and some more instead continuous data coming from your wearable that now can also get from heart, brain, whatever, eyes, I don't know, that I think would be of great value, because then it's not anymore you slept bad, but it's a bit more, maybe tonight I know that you would love to go playing football with your friends, but consider that the day after tomorrow you have a super important presentation. Considering what happened in the last 2 days and considering that now your brain seems a bit tired.
Yeah, you're already...
Give it a second shot.
Should you eat that steak tonight?
For example, again,
meat, yeah.
Are we ready to accept advices from a bot? I don't know. But to put it in a bit of a more comprehensive landscape, I think it will help us to also understand what's the benefit out of it, right? It's not anymore just don't eat red meat because you sleep bad.
Mm.
Right.
Do you think that there's a realistic future for like robust home edge compute where you have your own? I think that is so much of the value proposition with edge and edge AI in general is the on-prem data processing and not needing to go to the cloud. Do you think that people would actually buy a system that would be that mirror that would have some AI running locally for that processing, or do you think that the state of technology development is going to require these to be continually like cloud managed services? I know you mentioned earlier you're not super worried about the privacy. I'm not either until my health insurance company starts getting involved. But for the most part, I'm okay to relinquish control. But do you think that there's a market for this like home edge compute health data stuff?
I do so, even though I also do believe that we will need a lot of guardrails around and regulation. I had in the last days a nice conversation with a person involved in the AI and software in medical devices, and there was a very similar discussion about on-prem rather than cloud and training specifically, and what he mentioned is that for medical devices, there will probably be a big difference between data that you use to train and data that you're using just to learn something. And to give us suggestion. And he mentioned specifically that because the training, if you do the training, for example, on device, to then give suggestion, you actually miss the validation step because you don't know where the new data that are generated, you don't know where they will lead. And if it's a medical device, you clearly don't want to go in a gray zone in which you cannot predict what your machine is doing. So what came out of the discussion is that probably there could be also a middle way, meaning that we will have some kind of mid-sized AI models that are pre-trained and use on-prem, but without a continuous learning to improve the model. So again, there are many, many ways, but for sure we want to be confident about data privacy, but we also want to be, especially if we go in the agentic AI, so to say, we want to be extremely sure that it will not give suggestions that are dangerous.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. Or like I was talking with somebody yesterday about Theranos, and they were providing false signals, and that's like it's really not great. Like false positive is bad, but also false negative, really, really bad.
Right, and exactly. Thinking back when we were discussing before about this futuristic way, it cannot happen that it suggests you, I don't know, to sleep on a balcony with -5 because cold plunges are generally good. So why not to stay 15 hours at minus whatever? Cannot be, right?
Yeah. How varied? So, computational biology, medical research, cancer research. There's a lot of like genomic things that are happening. I'm like way out. I'm hand waving. That means I have no idea what I'm talking about. But how person specific are these models that are developed? So is this typically with the measurement that you're doing and you train an AI model, is that going to be reasonably applicable to you and me? Or would the model be hyper personalized and more effective working on just you for like general use cases?
I'm no expert, but I talk with people that knows more than me, and what I learned is that it's both, meaning that we are getting to the point in which we have generalized models, foundational models, that's the right terms, that are good enough to have a very, very good performance, disregarding what the single user is, or who is the single user, right? So it has been trained in such a way that it's so big and knowledgeable, so to say, or so it saw so much, it has seen so much that basically covers all. I still do understand that having the chance to then make a further training based on the single user might even improve that. But again, from discussion that I had recently, I feel, but again, I'm not an expert. I would be happy if someone then in the comment of the podcast will say completely wrong. But my understanding is we are getting to these kind of foundational models that are so good that the results will be already quite good without
Quite close, yeah.
hyper customization. Yeah.
Where do you look for inspiration in your work and research? Like, is there any organizations you look to you think are really truly cutting edge, or yeah?
That's a good question. I don't think that I have one specific reference, but also because I think that in the last 3 years, I changed how I describe my job, I think 50 times, because I talk with players at so many different levels. I mean, from the one developing the algorithm to the semicon company that it's the next step in the value chain with respect to where I am, to the huge corp that start the meeting telling me, don't talk about technology. I don't care about what you do if you don't bring the value to my customer. Okay? And none of them is wrong, right? I mean, it's all giving a different perspective and point of view of the same ultimately goal that we have, that is bringing a product that adds value to the user. So, long story short, I try to kind of cluster all these ideas to have a bit of holistic understanding as much as I can, so whatever, and to translate it in the offer of our company. It's also targeting a bit the message, try to focus more on this or that, rather than in the beginning. I mean, I'm a material guy, right? So in the beginning, I thought that material might have saved the world, but in the meantime, I learned that material is important, but it's just a piece of a way bigger puzzle.
And you talk a lot about user-centered design, providing value to the customer. How do you bring that to the boardroom or to folks evaluating your products for their next product line, your sensors for their product line?
You mean internally, or
no? I mean, you're just that last example, the CEO that said, hey, if you're not talking, don't talk to me about tech, talk to me about value to the customer. How do you connect those dots for them?
Yeah, that's a difficult part as component supplier, because in the beginning we simply didn't know how to answer. We just said, "Sorry, give me a sec. I will come back." By the way, and that was the polite reply to say, "Guys, I thought that you knew. I mean, I'm a component supplier in new devices. I thought that you had the idea." But okay, I don't even pretend anymore that the customer I'm meeting know exactly what they want. But so how I tackle the problem is actually to partner up, to cluster with all the other player along the value chain. For example, we have electrodes that don't work without electronics, but that means that there is someone making the electronics that is actually looking for electrodes. So let's talk with them. And then there are companies developing algorithms that they declare themselves obviously device agnostic. Happy. Let's just try to validate one of my demo with them. So once they go to my customer, I have a very specific application that I did not have to spend, years of development to do it. And let's create kind of a package that is easier to be understood by whatever OEM or end customer. And I'm very open when I do this. I say, guys, if this OEM tells me, I don't care about your electrodes, but I love the algorithm, I just share your contact and I'm out of the table. I don't pretend to be exclusive in any way. I really want the market to grow for the benefit of everyone. So there are risks connected to that, but I also acknowledge that I cannot do all, right? So,
what do you view as the future of the market and growing this market? Where do you think it's headed?
But I think that it will move fairly fast in the near future. I mean, in that, if you think about, for example, Apple now released with the Bose, is it the Bose? No, the Dr. Dre, the Beats, the first earbud with PPG. That's interesting, and that kind of get together with my still idea that earbuds with more functionality will be the first next big thing.
Right.
From there to add EEG, well, it's not an easy step, but you are starting to get the customer used to having a biosignal measured from the ear. So they start to understand that. They start to see the value behind that, specifically if, then you have to target a bit. But so I see more and more the trend of having devices that we know and we recognize and we value with additional capabilities. This comes also thanks to the commoditization of AI models, from also a lot of semicon companies trying to basically leverage the already commoditized sensors that they had since forever, but now they're so cheap and so small that you can place them basically everywhere. So they start to spread IMUs all over because they can, but I think that this could also have some value ultimately.
And Apple is such a fantastic platform for health and wearables. They have this health ecosystem. I think that the app developers are always a few years ahead of them, but then they will bring these things into the core platform. I think that it will be commonplace for people to accept the signals of, hey, I'm stressed, hey, I'm tired, and this is now a useful notification that hopefully Apple would be able to roll out natively on these products.
I agree. The only problem that I have with Apple is that they are extremely conservative, meaning that they have to be hyper sure. So I heard somewhere, and I personally believe it's true, that Apple never does anything new. They make it a second, but more polished. So they wait that someone actually make their hands dirty and make it wrong, and then tries to make it right first, right? So, and my fear just because it means more delay, is that it will happen like that also for these other new biosignals that we can leverage. So they will ultimately come also in that big established and recognized platform, but probably not as fast as many of the players in the field like. But it's
well, awesome. Well, I really enjoyed the conversation. Thank you so much for coming on. It's been a pleasure to reconnect. Anything that we can help you with on the show? Are you looking for new pilot companies, or what can we do to help you?
No, I mean, I think that first, thank you for having me again, and I think that by this conversation, I would like to extend the access to also your community. That we have a nice overlap, but I also know that we have way more behind us, right? So by doing that and by sharing what we think about its upcoming, we might really create some or connect some dots that ultimately we would have not been able to do without. So thank you for this opportunity again, Bill.
Absolutely. All right. Well, we'll see you next time, and have a great day.
Great. Thank you.
All right, everybody. Just a quick reminder, this podcast is presented by Peridio, the ecosystem for building and maintaining advanced embedded products.